Hello everybody and welcome. This is really exciting. This is the Nursing, Midwifery and AHP Research Council's first ever podcast. So hosting the podcast is myself. My name's Sophie. I'm an infection prevention control nurse and aspiring nurse researcher.
And I'm Claire, and I'm one of the librarians in the trust. So obviously got a vested interest in helping people kind of do bits of research, get things published. We're here to help you. The idea behind the podcast was to kind of highlight some of the research being done in the hospitals trust, who's doing it, a little bit of information sharing, and provide a platform for people to discuss their work, what great research projects are going on, and whether people want to think about writing something for publication.
Yeah, and today we are really lucky to be joined by Catherine, and Catherine's going to talk to us about her incredible article.
Hello. I think I'll probably just give you a little bit of my history, just so that you don't necessarily think that research is just sort of the remit of the young degree nurses that are all coming out now. I've actually been nursing for 40 years this May, and obviously I trained the very, very old-fashioned way. Brilliant practically, but academically, yes, it was sadly lacking. So I trained even before Project 2000. So the thought of me doing any kind of research was really, really quite daunting. My nursing history is that I've been working in colorectal probably for 25 years and then working with Stoma Care for 13 years. Now, I'm quite senior in Stoma Care, but I didn't have the academic qualifications really to back it up. So I came into academia fairly late, and I only probably completed my degree about 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. Still think that, oh, crikey, doing bits of research is not for me, it's for other people. But being in a specialist role, you become involved in other people's pieces of research and things. So we have lots of issues with parostomal hernias, and Royal Devon and Exeter were leading a study into the prevalence of these hernias and different surgical techniques, whether or not some surgical techniques meant that you were more likely to end up with a hernia. So we actually, as a department, were taking part in that CIPHER study. So as much as we weren't doing any of the research ourselves, we became involved with recruiting patients for it and doing the information gathering. Then COVID came along, which sort of scuppered that. So that's all gone a little bit on the back burner for us. But it was a little bit of a hint into what goes on with research.
Oh, Catherine, I love the fact that you've raised that, the thought of doing research felt really big and daunting when actually anyone can do it, everyone can be involved, everyone has a place within this as well.
Yeah. Well, when you've trained the old-fashioned way, and I mean, I've got a glorious handful of diplomas, that's only to a certain level, and you actually think, well, that's as far as I'm going to go. But then getting a more senior role and kind of being almost forced into doing a degree, if you like, makes you start reading articles in a different way, critiquing things in a different way. And I'm not the world's best at it, of course I'm not, but I can tell now a good piece of research from a bad piece of research. And you can look at things far more objectively. Mm. So what then happens then, because it's Stoma Care, and Stoma Care, we're there for the patients, but I'm also not that naive, that I'm very, very well aware that there's a market for stoma products out there. So the line that we kind of try to balance as stoma nurses is providing the best products for the patients, but also providing good value with the products and things that we use. We have to prove to the GP, because if a patient's got a stoma, they're going to be being prescribed fairly expensive products for the rest of their lives, potentially. And we need to prove that these products are good, value for money, and actually they work really well for the patients. So there are lots of stoma nurses throughout the country, that every now and again get together. Sometimes they will get together because there's a company that's asked them to. Sometimes they're just getting together. And it's almost a bit of a wish list. What would you like for Stoma Care? So I've been working for a while with a stoma company, Coloplast, and on the wish list was a leakage indicator, if you like. So we've got the button that you wear for diabetes, and you just scan it with your phone and it lets you know if your blood sugars are going up or going down. But over a period of number of years, they developed a leakage indicator called Halo, and it Bluetooths to your phone.
Bluetooths?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's
isn't it?
amazing.
Yeah, and it will scan what's going on underneath your stoma bag 1,000 times an hour.
Oh, wow.
Oh my goodness.
So I guess if you're a patient and you're wearing a dress, you don't have to keep lifting it up to check and things like this. You've got the information on your phone.
You've got the information on your phone, yeah.
So is
you
it kind of provides reassurance to patients that there isn't anything nasty?
Yeah, it doesn't prevent leaks, but it gives the patient then a bit more control about when they're going to go in and change their bags. So it isn't a product, though, that was suitable for everybody. So it's not suitable for people if they've got very formed stool. It's also not suitable for people if they've got a urostomy, so urine. So it's really for people who have the liquid feces. But what it has the potential to do was going to be amazing. So we're all of the same mind that this is amazing, but it's something that's brand new on the market. So, and it's something that obviously has an added cost to the GP. Now, while this added cost is reasonable, it's similar price to one of the additional products that we use called Seal. So it's about the same price as a Seal, and an awful lot of patients use Seals. We've still got to be able to justify that using a new product is worth it. So how did we go about doing that, really, was our thought. So,
And that's a brilliant kind of reason for carrying out a piece of research to kind of prove cost effectiveness, because at the end of the day, everybody knows how tight pressed the NHS is kind of money wise. So if you've got the evidence behind you, you're a lot more likely to succeed.
Exactly. So we know as stoma nurses, though, there have been hundreds and hundreds of studies done. There's the Ostomy Life study that was it was done every year up until 2019 by Coloplast. Loads and loads of other studies that are done that will always come out with a percentage up in the 90s that people worry about leakage. Doesn't mean they're leaking, but people worry about leakage. So that always comes out, and it doesn't matter what study it is, which company's done the study, whether it's been an independent piece of research or anything, it always comes out above 90% that people worry about leakage. And I think as stoma nurses, we're almost a little bit blasé. It's a very, very sort of practical job in that somebody comes to you because they're having skin issues. We stop them leaking, their skin issues goes away. It's kind of nice and easy, but we don't necessarily deal with the psychological things that are going on. We don't actually really have time, or maybe also not the inclination, to stop and ask people if they're worrying about things. It's very in, very out. And are we actually going to open a huge can of worms if we ask people if they're worrying about things and they come back with an answer we've got to do something about?
Yeah.
And particularly if you haven't had anything that you could offer them until now that could kind of help alleviate their worries.
Yeah, massively. I've actually got a friend who's got a stoma, and she is supremely confident. She works fundraising. She doesn't mind telling the whole world that she's got a stoma. And I was talking to her, and she actually told me that she no longer goes down to London for any of her meetings because she worries that her bag is going to leak on the train. Now, you wouldn't know that to see her. No, you wouldn't know it to look at her. So I'm thinking, there is a market for this product, but where do we pitch this product?
Yeah. I suppose that kind of brings us very nicely onto that, because I feel like we should introduce the title of, the article that you're the author of, well, one of the authors, because it's a collaboration, which we'll go on to in a bit. But it's titled Development of a Leakage Impact Assessment for Patients with a Stoma Who May Be Impacted by Leakage. So it was published this last year, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, in the British Journal of Nursing as well. So we'll make sure that there is a link somewhere in the comments where you'll be able to access it.
What we want to actually pick out of this is whether or not a patient is worrying about leakage and what the impact of that worrying about leakage is having on them. So we looked at this quality of life assessment tool, which is already out there, and basically refined the questions, shaved lots of those questions off, and then looked at them as a group. And yes, that's it. That's going to do it. And then we went off and we tried them on some patients.
So how did you find the kind of collaboration process? How did that kind of work coming to kind of consensus?
Well, it's good, and you've got to have somebody definitely who's in charge of the room, because everybody wants what they want in on there for a very valid reason to themselves. But the collaboration was done with Amanda Gunning, who's the lead Stoma nurse down in Devon and Exeter, Tracy Virgin Ellison, she's retired now. She's a Stoma nurse from the Middlesex. Claire Price is the lead nurse from North Bristol. Simi is the lead Stoma nurse up in Stoke. And then Adrian Summerton is the marketing person for the Halo project with Coloplast. And then there were a few other people in the group. So we were basically pulled together by Coloplast because we were giving feedback on what we thought of leakage impact product.
Okay, so that's kind of how it all started then?
It all started, with that. And then we've got to then go off and actually, find a way then to actually prove its worth to the GPs.
Okay.
I think the company had quite a lot of, they worked with us for about on and off for about 5 years, because to start off with, we were very, very sceptical. Is this thing going to work? How's it going to work? Is it going to be bulky? Is it all that? So they were back and forth to us for a very long time, tweaking it here and tweaking it there. But when we got the tool, the Halo device, we've then got to prove to the GP that actually it's worth using on some people. Not worth using on every person, though. So this is where you've got to get the assessment right and make sure that you're going with the right patient on it.
Right.
So we go from the quality of life assessment tool questions, which were about 40, and eventually, over a process of quite a few months, was whittled down to the 8 questions that we have now.
Which is, and it's also 8 questions, a lot more manageable from a patient viewpoint, because nobody wants to be filling in 40 questions, do they? So it's better for everybody. Keep it short and sweet.
Better for them, easier for us to give a score to. So each question then has a score that goes between 1, which is the lower end, and 5, the higher end. So it's easier for us to add up. But what we then decided is actually, you can't have a cut-off point. You can't say if you score 20, therefore you're going to end up, we're going to recommend that you use this Halo device. This is just our benchmark line. This gives us a score then that we can then write to the GP and then say this patient is now using this Halo device. And what's happened now as a result of using this Halo device is that they now worry less, and their score is now 15, whereas it was 20. So we can't fix everything with every patient, but we can prove a progression
of improvement.
Oh, great. Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So we're not going to magic everything, and also we are quite happy to say to patients who've seen this thing advertised and they come across to us and say that they want it, we're quite happy to say no, it's not actually going to be of any value to you. But what I found when I was doing this and doing these questionnaires is it's quite easy to, there's two ways. You can either give it to the patient because it's only 8 questions, they can sit and tick it while they're waiting in the waiting room, or you can go through the questions with them because it's not onerous. But we had, just for example, a young person in who was a fitness trainer, and everything had been absolutely great, hunky-dory. This person had had one leak, like two days post-op, which is not unusual at all. And it gets laughed off. We have then put them on a product that is suitable, and this patient actually has not had any leaks at all since that second day that they were in hospital. And they're back working as a personal trainer, but they are worried, constantly worried that they are going to leak. And because they were working as a personal trainer, they were changing their bags 3 times a day.
Oh gosh, would that hurt their skin?
Because they can't see what's going on. Doesn't necessarily hurt the skin because they've got stuff, but there's a massive cost implication.
Of course, yeah.
So we start using this halo device on them, and they now change their bag once every 2 days.
Oh wow,
that's a massive cost. Well, it's cost saving, and also it's brilliant for the patient.
For the patient,
as well,
because they're not constantly worried that they're about to leak.
Yeah. Brilliant.
So we've come up with this assessment tool.
Yep.
And we're all happy with it.
Yep.
But we then, Adrian's idea, I have to say, is, well, let's write this up and let's get this published.
Amazing.
So let's work at doing this. So, which is really quite daunting, like I said, for somebody who's trained the.
So do you think? I get the impression that there's particularly a lot of nurses who've got a bit of imposter syndrome going on in terms of kind of, I don't feel I'm got the skills, or I'm not kind of good enough or clever enough to kind of
all the time as well, right?
Yeah. So I don't, I think, we get a lot of people saying, oh, I can't, I'm doing a course, I don't know what I'm doing, that kind of thing. And it's the confidence. Hugely say, especially as I said, I did my degree and everything late, massively lacking in confidence and a huge amount of imposter syndrome. Yeah.
But speaking from doing my degree and things, the library people here were absolutely amazing. They were phenomenal when it came to doing.
Big up there.
Any literature searches and things like that, because you can have your lessons in how to do it, but until you actually start doing it, and when you've had a lesson, it's quite a lot of information to absorb in one go.
Yeah.
So
you can always come back.
Yeah,
that's what we say.
But it's been a very good process. So what we were actually doing then, when we got sort of the basic article was written, because we're all 4 corners of the country, it was then just sort of banged backwards and forwards with us with email and correcting things. And I think I'd word it this way. I think I'd word it that way.
And did the editorial team of the journal, were they kind of helpful as well? Did they give you pointers?
They're very helpful.
Yeah.
I didn't have any.
You're not doing it completely by yourself.
Absolutely
There's lots of kind of help from both colleagues and editorial kind of people.
I didn't have the direct contact with them, but I know that Adrian did. But I also know that one of the other girls in the department has written various articles for nursing supplements and things in Stoma Care, and they've been very, very guided by these magazines.
Yeah.
I think that's what people think. You have to send in a final thing and they'll reject it, or because it's not like that at all.
No.
They might kind of help you kind of reword a few bits or change a few bits around. So the help is there.
So I noticed near the end the plan is for it to be trialled. Are you going to be doing that, a part of that as well?
Trialling the leakage impacts, trialling the tool. We're actually using the tool. So we've jumped straight into it. When they say trial the tool, we tried it for a bit. We tried it on about 8 patients for each of us that did the article, just to give feedback and make sure that it was user friendly. But we are in the process now of using it. We're not jumping hell for leather and putting it on every single patient. We're being very selective with it, according to what their scores are, and making sure that the GPs are getting properly communicated with so that they understand the value of it as well.
It'd be interesting to get the GPs' feedback on it and what they think about it versus the price and things like this.
I think at the moment, because we're so selective, you're probably going to find that the GPs are going to say, what is Halo? But hopefully that's going to change. So like I say, at the moment, Halo is only really any good for patients who've got an ileostomy. No good for patients with a colostomy or a urostomy. So because the stool output's got to be liquid.
Also, just a couple of questions really from me. Have you had to get ethics approval or anything like this, or have you had to contact the research departments here or anything like that?
I think if we were doing some work that had been just specifically here, then we would have done. But because we were doing it in collaboration with the company, they're the ones that got all the ethical approval and stuff. So we weren't actually involved with that. I was involved with that when we were doing the parastoma hernia study and things, but that's down with the research department people, and they're really helpful as well.
Yeah.
Amazing. In the article you mentioned about there's consensus meetings, and I think Claire's already said kind of what was that like? Was it mainly through emails, or did you meet on Teams? And you said there was someone facilitating that discussion.
Yeah, initially the consensus meetings are all done face-to-face because we've actually got the product and things in front of us, and there were more people involved in the initial whittling down of the 40 questions to the 8 that we use. So there's probably about 23 of us in the room doing that.
Gosh, that's a lot.
Oh, wow.
And then the final last little bit is us.
The core
core.
authors.
Yeah.
Do you have any kind of hints or tips for people who are thinking of either kind of becoming involved in a research project or in writing something for publication? What would you say to them?
I would say to them, find a subject that you like, because if it's something that you like and something that you care about, something that you're passionate about, it's easier to do, because then you feel that actually you're making a difference with things. But what I would also say is that actually if you have done any academic study or you've done some master's modules or things like that, then there are ways that actually you can turn your assignments into articles.
Oh, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, and I know that is something we've talked about at the Research Council before, is how to kind of encourage people who've already done a piece of research for their dissertation or whatever to turn it into a journal article, get it published, get that knowledge out there. Because in the NHS, we're not always brilliant at sharing knowledge with each other.
No, but again, I think that's quite a lot, because you're saying about imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's hope this is where that podcast can help, right?
Yeah, go for it. Because actually, the whole journey is it's interesting. It was a topic that I was very, very passionate about. So obviously, I'm going to be more enthused. But it's a good process, and actually seeing your name printed is a really lovely feeling.
It's brilliant.
It is.
It's
a
such
really
a good achievement.
It's a really good article, really great read. I would recommend anyone to read it. Even if you're not, a specialist in stoma care and things like this, it is really, really great article to read. And well done, Catherine. I think it's a real great achievement. I really love that we can kind of highlight your work here today as well.
Thank you. Just a small cog, but it was fun doing it.
Good.
Brilliant.
That's good to hear.